We're good.
We good? Hey, what up, everybody? Guess we're gonna do a Q&A here. Got my boy Tyler.
My boy Tywon.
Hey, yeah, and a whole bunch of people. Say hi, everybody.
Hey, we're excited about hydrogen, water. Let's talk some hydrogen.
Cool. So we're gonna just do a quick little Q&A, answer people's questions. So kick it off. Whoever's got the first question, go ahead. Not have to be in kind of order or anything like that. So
I have a question.
go ahead.
The question that I have for you, you know, alkaline water has many benefits. I mean, I drank it myself and I felt some benefits, but was it the alkalinity of the water or was it something else in the water?
I'll let you take this.
No,
one.
you answer it.
Since you got this one, since you did a medical publication around it, why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
Well, you know, we did do a publication, and you can read it. But let me answer your question. No, actually, it's a really good question. A lot of people have that. And the fact is alkaline pH doesn't really have, drinking alkaline pH doesn't really have the benefits that we are hoping for. It's really about the hydrogen gas. So when you have like alkaline ionized water, well, it turns out the benefit is just from the hydrogen gas. And so, yeah, as Taiwan was saying, we actually published a paper on this. And this it goes through, it's not just a study, but it's a comprehensive review article of like all the publications out there showing that when you remove hydrogen gas from alkaline ionized water, all the benefits are eliminated. It's just the hydrogen gas that matters. So that makes things a lot more simple. You don't worry about like, how many plates do you have? How many this? How many that? You just have to focus on molecular hydrogen.
Yep.
Doesn't all water have hydrogen in it? I mean, H2O, right?
Yeah.
Come on, we're already drinking water with hydrogen.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that one. So yes, water is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom. But that hydrogen atom constitutes or forms the actual water molecule. But hydrogen-rich water, by the way, everybody, hydrogen-rich water is simply water with hydrogen gas dissolved into it. So if you were to take Tyler's course, or even watch my videos, you can learn about the different species of hydrogen. And there's 4 different species of hydrogen. And also learn more about hydrogen-rich water and basically be able to figure this out. So that would be my answer.
I love it. All right, that's got my question answered. Who else have a question?
I have a question. Is
Good.
it possible to get any kind of toxicity from molecular hydrogen? Can you drink too much molecular hydrogen?
You want to take this
Yeah,
one?
sure. So excellent question. So far, there is no clear indication that there are contraindications of drinking too much hydrogen water. Of course, there's a problem with drinking too much water alone, right? If you drink like a gallon of water, you know, in an hour, people have died doing that, right? But hydrogen gas doesn't store in the body. It's not like a pharmaceutical or some substance that like stays in the fat tissue and eventually is going to build up and be toxic to the liver or the kidney. In fact, hydrogen has the highest rate of diffusivity, and it can diffuse through the cell membranes really easy. It reaches the nucleus where the DNA is at, the mitochondria, everywhere really easy, where it can provide therapeutic effects. That also means it's going to leave the body pretty quickly. So most of the hydrogen gas is lost through the breath during exhalation, and it'll go back to baseline within about 16 minutes after you drink the hydrogen water, or you do inhalation. So there's no risk of toxicity. Of course, more research needs to be done, like maybe there's certain conditions where there's some sort of contraindication or something. But if you think about hydrogen, it's one of the most natural substances that there are. In fact, our bodies naturally produce hydrogen gas because we have our gut bacteria, right? And when we listen to what our parents said to eat our fruits and vegetables to get those fiber, that fiber is metabolized by the gut bacteria to produce hydrogen gas. And that's a lot of hydrogen gas. Actually, it's more hydrogen gas than we get from drinking water. Which then raises the question, why then would drinking hydrogen water give you any benefits?
It's an enigma.
Yeah, it is an enigma, but we do have some answers now, right, because about the temporal profile of the concentration of hydrogen gas in the blood. Because when you drink hydrogen water, you get a higher concentration of hydrogen gas in the blood and at a faster concentration than through metabolism of non-digestible carbohydrates. So, to answer your question, yes, hydrogen gas seems to be very safe. They used it for lots of research from a long time ago. It's natural to our bodies. There doesn't appear to be any obvious contraindications. But yeah, you can overdose on water. But molecular hydrogen, it doesn't store in the bodies, doesn't store in the tissues. It's therapeutic.
It's kind of interesting, by the way, too, that you're talking about that with the gut, because you can raise those levels, but they'll actually sustain in the blood for longer periods of time maybe the cells might get used to it, right? But the hydrogen-rich water is intermittently exposing your body to a higher level of hydrogen.
Yeah,
So,
that actually
it's a more
references
favorable effect.
one of the publications that was at Nagoya University. Is actually just finished it right before I got there.
Oh,
And
the Parkinson one?
in the Parkinson one, yeah. And that's kind of what you're referencing, right?
Yes.
Where they found the intermittent exposure to hydrogen gas was therapeutic, but not continuous exposure. And,
Right.
and the continuous exposure was administered in two ways. One, the hydrogen gas inhalation 24/7, as well as administration of lactulose, which is a non-digestible carbohydrate. So the body was exposed to hydrogen gas for many, many hours, and quite a bit of it, but there was no therapeutic effect in this case. But the drinking of hydrogen water was very therapeutic.
Right, correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else got a question? Oh.
I think people online have a question. So if you do have a question, there's going to be a giveaway after this. So people ask the question at the bottom. Healthy Hydration is going to give you something, possibly. There's going to be 3 of you that win. So however many people ask a question, of 3 winners. Okay, so who has a question out there?
Oh, thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome. And if they don't, we're going to bring an audience member up and tell their story and how this has affected them. Any questions? Louis, come tell us how much water.
I started drinking hydrogen water about 6 months ago, and before I was drinking it, I've had 3 hip replacements, bone transplant. The only thing I was doing for exercise was sitting in a hot tub and doing aerobic exercise. And I met this gal. She said she lost 80 pounds drinking hydrogen water, so I was like, oh, what the heck, I'll go try it. And so that's where I met Amanda. And so I started inhalation and drinking the water. Within the first day, I started feeling better. By the first week, I was off all my pain meds. After the second week, I stopped self-medicating with alcohol and marijuana, and I've been drinking hydrogen water for 6 months now, and this is the best I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
So,
That's great, Louis.
What is Michael question? Question that doesn't matter.
What is microclustering? It doesn't matter. Well, we actually have a video on this where we talk about the misconception of microclustering. Which kind of the idea is basically water clustering in smaller. Basically, you can have bulk water or water that has a lot of molecules stuck together, and then you can run it through the process of electrolysis, and then it'll reduce it to 3 or 5 clusters. But there's really no scientific evidence to support this, and it kind of goes against what's been demonstrated by the scientific literature about how water works, which water is always in flux and all this stuff. So with that being said, we actually produced a video. You should watch it on Extra Minutes about microclustering and misconceptions around it. And segue to Tyler here. Tyler's actually another article where you talked about this too. So how about you touch on it too?
Yeah, no, but exactly what Tywon said, that there is no data to indicate that such microclustering exists. And even if it did, that let alone there'd be therapeutic effects from it. And in fact, if it did exist, there's rationale to believe it would be harmful for you. You wouldn't want that. A microcluster is actually larger than the actual very channel. It's called the aquaporin. So it wouldn't even get into the cell very easy. There's lots of problems with it. And so yeah, check out Tywon's videos. I actually have some articles on MHI as well. It's called the making of a myth, microclustering. And because it was started because people didn't know why alkaline ionized water was therapeutic. And most of the researchers and people who have any physiology behind them knew it was not the alkalinity, it was not the pH. Well, then what could it be, right? What could it be? So they thought maybe it was the microclustering. And so as Tywon said, they thought that this idea that smaller water clusters, they had this data from magnetic resonance imaging showing the different bandwidth of the water. Turned out that was just an artifact of the pH. So yeah, we talk about this actually in our courses at MHI, so you can become MHI certified. We talk about that specific aspect, and also in the article that I published, you can go through and we talk about microclustering and structured water there. So
to watch the videos from
Yeah, watch the videos for Extra Minutes. Actually, there's a video. I think it's the title is of it, but I think it's where we debunk microclustering. So, but also maybe it was an active hydrogen. You guys ever heard of active hydrogen?
Mm-hmm.
You heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, which is a total misnomer or anything, but basically, this is another.
Also in the article.
Also in the article is another misconception of them trying to figure out why the water worked. But basically, active hydrogen, like I said, it would just be looking at basically thinking of it as a hydrogen atom, which doesn't make sense to be a free radical and stuff. So it's
Yeah,
like,
well, maybe the
it's
because you said it's a misnomer, which is important because it's the translation. It's from the Japanese word because it's reactive hydrogen. That's what it is.
Yes.
Reactive hydrogen is atomic hydrogen, which is free
So
radical.
free radical.
So reactive hydrogen is real. But when you translate it from the kanji characters of the Japanese, reactive, then people start saying active hydrogen. And so the mistranslation is that's actually like doesn't make any sense like in chemical terminology.
Yeah.
But they mean reactive hydrogen, which is atomic hydrogen, which you can't have something like that in the water.
Exactly.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Can people that are taking medication drink the medication with this water without any worries?
Yeah, there's no reason that we have found when it comes to just hydrogen water. Now, it could be a little bit different for alkaline ionized water for other factors. But when it's just hydrogen water, at the current position, there's no data to suggest that you can't do that. And in fact, in some of the studies, we'll actually administer molecular hydrogen water along with a drug. So, for example, some chemotherapy drugs, like 5-FU, for example, or some other ones that have toxic effects, like trying to kill the cancer, right? And when we administer molecular hydrogen along with those drugs, it doesn't negate the activity of those drugs, it doesn't negate the effects, but it does protect the healthy cells from those drugs. So aspirin is another one that has been done, where aspirin can hurt the stomach, but taking hydrogen water along with the aspirin helps to prevent the negative side effects of the aspirin, for example.
Right. Well, made me think of another one. I think it's I think it's caspacin. I think it's a chemotherapy drug that they administer hydrogen water with and show that it protect the liver.
Yeah, that's Well, caspacin is.
Caspacin is-
Yeah. Well, no, that's actually the molecule that is responsible for making like jalapenos hot.
Oh no! What's the one I'm thinking of?
That makes sense. I don't have to look at it.
You have to look at the article because it was I can't think of the name of the chemotherapy drug, but they administered with hydrogen-rich water,
And it's
it's like hydrogen. Yes, it's all
Cisplatin.
hydrogen. Huh?
cisplatin.
Cisplatin. That's it. That's it. That's it.
Which is
I said the wrong. Cisplatin.
Yeah, cisplatin.
Yes. And so they administered it and showed that it protected
Exactly,
the
yeah.
liver.
Okay, there's a question for live.
Question number 1 here gets this bottle, $249 value. It's going to produce molecular hydrogen gas. So congratulations in advance here. You have the first question online.
Can hydro water help with high blood pressure?
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah. So we actually published a study. Well, a couple of them, but specifically the one study I'm talking about was a 6-month study with about 60 subjects. And they found that yes, actually, that in certain subjects that have elevated blood pressure, that the systolic blood pressure, that's the top number, that was able to be decreased. And there's a number of other studies supporting this. However, there's something interesting about this because there's a lot of really impressive animal studies showing decreased blood pressure and a number of human studies, but there's also studies, human studies and animal studies, where they have elevated blood pressure. And it seems like this is a perfect area where hydrogen water should be able to help decrease the blood pressure, and it didn't have any effect. So we're not sure exactly what that is because the etiology of high blood pressure is multifactorial. So I mean, there's a lot of causes to having hypertension, high blood pressure. So the best thing to do is to try it, and it might actually work really well for you. It's worked really well for a lot of people. Of course, that's anecdotal, but also based on the clinical studies. But in some cases, it seems like it doesn't have such a strong effect. And some of the mechanisms of why it might be able to help is because it can actually help sustain and increase the amount of nitric oxide being produced, which causes the vasodilation of the blood vessels.
Mm-hmm. I think this is why it's important to talk about hydrogen's therapeutic potential, not necessarily going to do something or another thing that has a potential to improve high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another one.
Congratulations. All right, we have another one. All right, you also received this. So just message Taiwan and we'll get your address and we'll ship this bottle to you. Question number 2.
Okay. How is hydrogen water anti-aging?
Wow. Well, we actually have a video about this. You should go watch it because I did a lot of work on it. But there are a couple different things when you look at aging. But first and foremost would be reducing oxidative stress and inflammation and these type of things. And there's been quite a few studies that demonstrated hydrogen seems pretty phenomenal for reducing oxidative stress and inflammation, which has also been associated with aging. So yes, hydrogen have therapeutic effects there for anti-aging, but it could also be because it regulates or influences the NRF2 pathway, which is our master regulator of our antioxidant system. So these type of things, if you go to the video, I'll blow your mind with how much hydrogen seems to be regulating different things that could be associated with aging. And now I know Tyler can probably add a few things too. We're talking about NAD plus and some of those type of things that's been associated with aging, telomeres.
Yeah.
These type of stuff revolve around the cell and stuff. But
Yeah, I largely will echo what Tywon said. Aging really is an issue with the chronic inflammation and a redox dysregulation with which molecular hydrogen can address. But yes, the NAD plus secreted adenine dinucleotide, which is a cofactor, is extremely important in the body. Hydrogen has the ability to increase that amount, so you have more NAD plus, or the NAD plus NADH ratio is higher. You don't get in all the weeds, but this higher ratio is very helpful for longevity, and so some of these anti-aging experts like David Sinclair, who I'm actually going to be at a conference with next month, he's an expert from Harvard, and he's focused on increasing NAD plus levels, taking things like NMN, nucleotinamide, mononucleotide. So that's one thing, but then another just important issue is as our cells age, they become senescent, so they just don't act properly anymore. And hydrogen has an ability to help with those cells. Maybe they can undergo autophagy, for example, which autophagy is basically eating the cells, clearing up the bad ones, and that has a lot of anti-aging properties itself. So there's a lot of pleiotropic effects where molecular hydrogen has anti-aging benefits.
Excellent.
Another question?
So how can hydrogen help us detox our bodies?
Well, Tywon mentioned just barely the NRF2 pathway, right? So this is really important. So the NRF2 is a critical protein. It's a transcription factor, and when it gets activated, this NRF2 protein in the cytosol of the cell diffuses into the nucleus, where it then binds to the DNA, the antioxidant response element. But when it does this is going to cause the transcription and translation of a whole bunch of important proteins. Many of them are the antioxidants that Tywon mentioned. So that's the antioxidation pathway. But there's also the detoxification enzymes that are also upregulated. These are called phase 2 enzymes. And that is with the detoxification aspects. So there's that part. And then going back to the oxidative stress and inflammation, you have to have that under control in order for you to detox properly. I put that in quotes because detox is often misused a lot in the realms of the other realms, but it's not it. So we have to be kind of careful with that term. It's kind of a loaded term, but having the inflammation in control is really important for your body to work properly. In fact, autophagy, which I just mentioned, is critical for all these processes. But inflammation, specifically a cytokine interleukin 6, can actually inhibit autophagy from happening. So if you have high levels of inflammation, you don't get the autophagy, therefore you don't get the detoxification, and so you don't get those benefits. So again, hydrogen being able to help things upstream and downstream and regulate this NRF2 pathway, NRF2 keep 1 pathway is going to be really important for the detoxification process.
Let me think of also, to add to that, made me think of glutathione, which I know you talked about being a chelator or be able to bind metal ions. And so it makes me wonder too about that being able, because it can upregulate glutathione.
So a lot of the antioxidation enzymes and proteins are involved also with detoxification. So because they are the same enzymes, but the mechanisms are very important. So you have glutathione as transferase.
Right.
And often what happens in order to detoxify something is you have to solubilize it. And so that you have to upregulate the enzymes that you need so you can put different molecular moieties on it to make it soluble so you can then detoxify it. So upregulating some of those enzymes is going to be critical so you can do the detoxification.
Right. So, in short, regulating different enzymes in the body can help you get some of these negative things out. So.
Can hydrogen help carpal tunnel to eliminate carpal tunnel or help?
I haven't seen any articles on that disease model in particular, and I don't necessarily know causal factors or how that works. But
yeah, that's an interesting one. It's possible based upon some of the etiological factors, the contributing mechanisms of what's causing carpal tunnel syndrome. It's like inflammation, for example, and it even improved with like autophagy, which we just talked about. But yeah, to Tywon's point, there's no like clinical studies that looked at this. Now I know anecdotally, which if you take my courses, we learn is the weakest form of evidence, but it's still something to take into consideration for people who have various issues with carpal tunnel syndrome and they're going to drink hydrogen water, or they even will soak their hands into hydrogen water, and they some of them feel a very strong relief from that. So it'd be interesting to do a study. Maybe something we'll consider in the future.
Because I see now we have a water we started with.
Yeah, with carpal tunnel.
And they recommend that and they put it and people have relief. That's why I thought maybe with this water that has higher should help us too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even just for the simple fact that it can reduce inflammation, have a big deal. Benefited somebody with it, so.
That's why they make bathtubs, right? With hydrogen?
Yeah, hydrogen baths.
I mean, why else would you not have that? Right?
Yeah.
What does it do on the skin? What does hydrogen do for your skin?
I don't know if I have a video about that, but I know you have an article about it.
There is quite a bit of benefits on hydrogen for the skin, and it's kind of a neat thing because just think about this. So when we take hydrogen water, we want it to benefit like our brain or our heart or something. You have to drink the hydrogen water, then it has to be diluted by the whole body, right? And then finally make it to these different organs and tissues and specific cells you want. Versus the skin, you can directly put the hydrogen directly onto the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're taking a hydrogen bath or you're rinsing your face or whatever into molecular hydrogen water, or other ways, because there's also like inhalation with some interesting ideas with that, then you can get those benefits directly on the skin. So everything we talked about with the autophagy pathway, the senescent cells, the regulation of oxidative pathways and detoxification and inflammation onto the skin. And so there are some clinical studies showing that people have shown like reduced wrinkles, for example, improved the skin, feel and look and the oils and these types of things. Okay, more research needs to be done with this. There's not a lot of good clinical data, a lot of like kind of case studies or uncontrolled studies or things, but it's quite promising, and I think more research needs to be done in this area.
Yeah, I would say we'll probably produce a video on this too in the future. We want to do a video for the major organs of the body. We already covered the brain. We did the heart. We did, I think, things around the lungs. So, but skin would be a big one, and then there's different studies from psoriasis to eczema to different things that have been actually looking at about how hydrogen's been able to improve these disease models. And so some of them, like Tyler said, we need higher level or credibility studies than what we have, but what we do have right now is really promising.
How can molecular hydrogen affect the brain and the blood-brain barrier? Can it penetrate through the blood-brain barrier?
Yes, it can. Hydrogen can infuse all human barriers. The blood-brain barrier, the intestinal barrier, whatever. Placenta barrier. You talked about the testes barrier.
Of course, gotta get that in there.
Gotta get it down there, I guess. Because it's the smallest molecule in the universe and it's neutral and it's charged. So yes, it can benefit the blood-brain barrier and it can fuse right through the blood-brain barrier. But we actually cover more about this in our Hydrogen on the Brain series, where we actually went through and collected a lot of data for how hydrogen can benefit the brain. And then it was so much that I was actually going to just make one video, but we needed to make it into 4 videos because there's just so much about what they're finding out throughout the literature. So that's something I would say about it. And then watch our videos. Watch those videos because it will tell you, like I said, the different studies that we've been referencing about how hydrogen can help with the blood-brain barrier with benefiting it.
Yeah, they're good videos. And It's like, if you want to understand his videos, take my courses. But if you want to understand my courses, watch his videos.
Yes, they work hand in hand.
Hey, tell them how small hydrogen is.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that one's a good one. We talk about that in our How Small video. But one of you, somebody pluck a hair. Somebody.
Have them all do it, everybody.
Go ahead. Pluck a hair.
Everybody.
Yeah. Everybody do this so you can you can see this
I remember
one.
that one.
This cool little trick. Okay, so once you get that piece of hair, I want you to hold it on its two ends and hold it up vertically. Yes, and put it in the light so you can see it. All right, so you can hold on its two ends, put it in the light, and then, all right, everybody got it? Okay. So you can fit across the width of a single strand of hair 3 million hydrogen molecules. So 3 million hydrogen molecules can fit across the width, approximately, of a single strand of hair. That's how small molecular hydrogen is. So when we talk about small, I mean it's small. it's unfathomably small.
And nano hydrogen?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to get into that. That was
Even
complicated.
smaller than
So
that.
I think
Yeah. Well,
the smallest.
Yeah, hydrogen
Yes,
is
it's
already on the nanometer level,
Yes,
right?
it's
Yeah.
Picometers.
2.7 nanometers.
Yeah, how much
Well-
was it in nanometers?
Well, it depends on, it's actually quite complicated.
Yeah.
But you have a hydrogen atom, typically we define the size of something based on the Stokes radius, the Stokes-Einstein radius.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the radius, and of course you look at the diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna have the atom that's gonna attach to another atom, right, to make the molecule. And so that's probably, it's less than 3 nanometers, about 2.87 nanometers. It's in my course. You can look at that. And I did a lot of calculations to try to get the best number that I could on this. But typically we talk about diameter. I was going to get into some math, but it's really small though, and so it's already on the nanometer level. It's the smallest molecule in the universe, right? And so in terms of like the nano size, this is like the nano, right? So when people talk about like this is nano H2, you're already at the nano level. What does that mean, right? Yeah.
So what about the hydrogen beads? How do they work and how do they continuously work?
Hydrogen beads?
Right? Yeah. Like,
Or are you thinking of
like the
hydrogen
magnesium media
tablets?
thing?
Or
like for the shower.
yeah, like that's
Yeah.
So like
So it's
magnesium,
magnesium.
it's probably magnesium. So it's like an alkali metal, which naturally reacts with water to produce hydrogen gas. So it's elemental magnesium.
okay.
And that's the form of magnesium that will generate hydrogen gas. It's not something like magnesium, like a magnesium supplement from the store, get magnesium oxide or something like that. That won't produce hydrogen gas. So what they're using is elemental magnesium, which is an alkali metal. And so it's naturally going to react with water to produce hydrogen gas. But basically, those are what those beads are doing. It's similar with the hydrogen tablets. I don't know if you guys know about the hydrogen tablets, what they're doing. But yeah, so that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And you said there's hydrogen pills too?
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Hydrogen tablets.
But yeah, when I use the research, I say hydrogen producing tablets because you don't really have a hydrogen tablet. It's a solid, But the idea is it's just reacting with water. It's just like your machine or your electrolysis, right? You have electrons and it adds into the water, and those electrons react with the positively charged hydrogen ions that are on the water, and they convert it to hydrogen gas. And this type of magnesium does the exact same thing. It just reacts with those hydrogens and converts it to hydrogen gas. It's the same process.
So it can continuously keep going.
But
The magnesium will eventually run out, so it
it'll
won't
run out,
continuously.
or-
So I think like Amanda, you'll have to like replace the beads after so long.
Yeah, because they'll pacify. And so basically,
Maybe it's the reaction will stop.
Yes, the reaction will stop.
Passivation.
Passivation.
So I heard when the hydrogen donates an electron to the free radical, I heard that by neutralizing it, it turns it into water. No, itself into water. Is that true?
It depends on.
It's
kind of
technical.
No, well, it sounds really simple and it's nice, right? And I
Yeah.
actually had a video on this. I talked about it a long time ago. But the idea you're talking about is you have the H2 molecule, right, and it reacts with 2 hydroxyl radicals, which is OH. then you're going to form 2 water molecules, and that's it. And it's a pretty picture, and that probably happens
Yes.
to some insignificant biological effect. But it's probably not the main mechanism going on. There's other like the NR2 pathway we talked about. That's probably the more important role. But the important thing which you mentioned is that with many types of antioxidants, when you take it and they donate an electron, then that molecule gets oxidized, and it's now could react with something else, or it needs to be rejuvenated. There's a problem that needs to be fixed. Maybe it's going to use up your glutathione levels in order to be rejuvenated, and that goes down to NADPH levels, and we could go on down the list, right? With hydrogen gas, it doesn't have those same problems, and most importantly, with molecular hydrogen, it can only react with the hydroxyl radical. It doesn't react with the other important radicals, because our body has a lot of very important radicals. I mentioned nitric oxide earlier. Nitric oxide is a free radical, but it causes vasodilation. It's really good for you. Hydrogen gas cannot react with that, and so there's a lot of benefits with that.
Question over here. Can you guys explain the various ways to make H2?
Various ways to make H2. Typically, the top one is electrolysis. Would be the number one. Number 2 would be through some alkali compound or metal. That would probably be number 2. I don't know what would be number 3.
Well, yeah, we cover this in our courses mainly. And those are the main ones: alkaline earth metals, and electrolysis. And then, of course, that's the kind of hydrogen we're interested in. There are other ways of making hydrogen gas, which they'll use in the fuel industry and other places where it's not as pure. Well, they'll actually take different types of hydrocarbons, and they'll do different reactions to break out the carbons, and then you form hydrogen gas from that. And that's not as a high of a purity.
Right. They also sometimes they'll use form like hydride or whatever.
Yeah, which is still typically an alkaline earth metals. Yeah, but you have like a magnesium hydride or sodium borohydride or aluminum hydride. Those are very powerful reducing agents. We use them in organic chemistry for reduction of alkanes and alkynes. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Any
Go ahead.
any more? One more question.
Any other question? One more question?
Can a person drink water with that has a pacemaker? Like a heart
pacemaker.
Yeah. or an implant?
Yeah, there's no reason why they shouldn't, because again, we kind of talk about how hydrogen gas is already very natural to the body. So if you couldn't drink hydrogen water, then are you going to say, well, you shouldn't have any vegetables or anything that has fiber in it, because that's going to produce hydrogen gas also, So there's no reaction. Hydrogen gas is not going to react with your pacemaker or the conductivity, the conduction pathway of the Purkinje fibers of the heart or something. So.
I have a question, kind of close to that. So someone that is doing dialysis and is asking, you're recommending them the hydrogen water, and they're like, well, I really can't drink that much water. What do you suggest?
That's a little bit more difficult of a position, because it's not about the hydrogen gas, it's about the dialysis, and so that's where water itself could be contraindicated because of the load it has on the kidneys, and they're trying to keep a specific osmotic balance, and and especially with that congestive heart failure, and there's a lot of issues there. So in that case, I would say you work with your physician, and the water that you are allowed to drink, then you could make that hydrogen water. And there are some studies where they actually take the actual dialysis machine and infuse hydrogen gas into the dialysis machine, and they're seeing some really neat benefits of that, including lowering blood pressure, which we talked about.
Thank you, everyone, for doing this with us.